What if the biggest obstacle in your life was you? Not your past, not your environment, not your circumstances, but the silent mountain you carry within. Fear, self-doubt, procrastination, and sabotage. The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest isn't just another self-help book. It's a powerful revelation. The mountain you must climb isn't outside, it's inside. This journey isn't about reaching the top. It's about breaking the cycles, facing the shadows, and becoming the version of yourself that's been buried beneath years of survival. So take a deep breath. You're about to face the climb of your life, and by the end of this journey, you'll no longer fear the mountain, because you'll realize you are the one who built it.
Chapter 1: The Mountain Within. They say life is a journey, but what they often leave out is that the hardest road isn't the one we walk, it's the one inside our minds. This isn't a mountain you see in front of you. It's the weight on your chest. It's the fear in your voice. It's the dream you never speak of. From the outside, everything seems fine. You smile, you function, you keep going. But within, a storm brews, made of doubts, past wounds, and quiet resistance. You start to ask yourself, why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Why do I sabotage the good things in my life? Why am I so afraid to become who I know I can be? The truth is harsh but freeing. You are the mountain. The procrastination, the fear of failure, the addiction to comfort, the obsession with control, each is a boulder stacked high within you, forming an invisible wall between you and the life you crave. But here's what they don't tell you. The mountain wasn't born to break you. It was placed in your path to teach you how to rise. You don't need to destroy the mountain. You need to understand it, to unearth the moments that built it, to see how pain created protection, how fear became a compass, and avoidance was your way of coping. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about shedding who you are not. Every step up this internal mountain is a step back to your essence, your wholeness. It begins now, not with a plan, not with a leap, but with a whisper inside you that says, enough. And once that whisper grows louder than the fear, the climb begins. Chapter 2: Breaking the Cycle. Have you ever felt trapped in a loop, reliving the same emotional struggle, making the same decisions, choosing the same kind of pain? That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns aren't just habits of behavior. They are reflections of wounds left unresolved. We don't sabotage ourselves because we're lazy or weak. We do it because we're afraid of what healing might demand. Because healing asks us to leave behind the identity we built to survive. It asks us to let go of the pain we've made into a home. Think of the mountain again. Each time you run from discomfort, each time you deny your feelings, each time you choose familiarity over growth, you lay another stone. Until one day, the mountain isn't just inside you, it is you. Here's the truth. You don't fear change. You fear loss. Loss of control. Loss of certainty. Loss of the self that's been wrapped around your pain like armor. But what if that version of you wasn't meant to last forever? What if the real you, the powerful, free, honest you, is waiting on the other side of the mountain? That's why your cycles keep repeating, not to punish you, but to get your attention. So you stop. So you look. So you choose differently. Because healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about realizing that you're not broken to begin with. You've just been responding to life with the tools you had. Now it's time to upgrade those tools. To release the belief that struggle is your home. To stop mistaking pain for purpose. The moment you see your cycle is the moment you claim your power. And once awareness enters the room, the pattern can't survive. It's the first crack in the mountain, and from that crack, light begins to pour in.
Chapter 3: Emotional Alchemy. What if your emotions weren't the enemy? What if the sadness, the rage, the emptiness were messengers, not curses? You see, we've been taught to suppress, to silence the trembling voice, to hide the teary eyes, to smile through the ache. But repression doesn't erase emotion, it buries it alive. And buried feelings don't die. They wait. They shape your thoughts. They sit beneath your relationships, your ambitions, your fears, until they erupt, not to destroy you, but to be acknowledged. This is emotional alchemy, the sacred art of feeling so deeply, so truthfully, that pain becomes transformation. But most people run from the discomfort, from the guilt, from the echo of what they couldn't say or do. You're not most people. To climb the mountain, you must stop running. You must sit with what you feel. Name it. Honor it. Let it breathe. Because every emotion is a portal. Anger reveals where you were silenced. Sadness unveils what you valued and lost. Fear shows where your boundaries were broken. And once you see the lesson within the emotion, you take back the power it once held over you. You become the alchemist. No longer ruled by your past, you begin to respond instead of react. To reflect instead of recoil. To grow instead of grieving endlessly. This is the shift that changes everything. Not because your emotions disappear, but because you stop fearing them. The mountain doesn't get smaller, but your capacity to face it gets stronger. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes a path. Chapter 4. Becoming your own healer. What if no one was coming to save you? What if you were the one you've been waiting for all along? It's a haunting realization, and a liberating one. Because healing doesn't come from outside, not from a partner, not from a parent, not from a perfect moment that never arrives. Healing begins when you stop outsourcing your wholeness. When you finally look in the mirror and say, "I am the one who can end this." We've been conditioned to think healing means fixing, to erase the past, to forget the pain. But true healing is not about deletion. It's about integration. It's about holding your past self gently, with all her confusion, her mess, her defense mechanisms, and saying, "You were doing your best." You don't need to hate who you were to become who you are. You just need to understand her, to listen, to forgive, and then to choose again. Every time you choose peace over chaos, truth over pleasing, boundaries over burnout, you reclaim a part of yourself. You pull pieces of your soul back from the places you left them. This is what becoming your own healer looks like. It's saying no without guilt. It's walking away from what drains you, even if it once felt like love. It's honoring your intuition, even when no one else understands. And most of all, it's realizing that you are not a broken project. You are a masterpiece in motion, a process, not a problem. There is no finish line, just deeper levels of presence, more radical honesty, a greater commitment to your own truth. Healing is not a destination. It's a relationship with yourself. The question is, are you ready to show up for you? Chapter 5. The mountain is you. What if the obstacle was never outside of you? What if the greatest enemy was your own resistance to growth? This is the core truth of the mountain. It's not your job, your partner, your trauma, or your past that holds you back. It's you. Not in a blaming way, but in an awakening one. Because once you realize that the mountain you are facing is a reflection of your own limitations, beliefs, and fears, you also realize you can climb it. The mountain is your anxiety, your avoidance, your procrastination. It's your fear of failure, your addiction to comfort, your belief that you're not enough. It's every part of you that clings to the familiar, even when it hurts, because it's safer than change.
But here's the most powerful part. The mountain is not against you. It is you, calling you forward, challenging you to evolve, demanding your highest self to rise. When you begin to understand this, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That's when the climb begins. Every step forward, every difficult choice, every uncomfortable truth, every risk taken, isn't just conquering the mountain. It's becoming the version of you who no longer needs to fear it. You don't overcome the mountain to prove your worth. You overcome it to meet the version of you who always had it. She's already there at the peak, waiting for you to remember her. So the next time life feels heavy, when the mountain feels too steep, ask yourself, what part of me is resisting this growth? What am I afraid to leave behind? And what might be waiting for me if I dare to keep climbing?
Chapter 6. Emotional triggers are invitations. What if every time you felt triggered, it wasn't a sign to run, but a signal to listen? Most of us recoil when discomfort rises, when someone says something that cuts deep, when an event pulls an old wound to the surface. We label it as bad, something to avoid or escape. But emotional triggers aren't enemies. They're messengers. They arrive with red flags not to harm us, but to reveal where healing is still needed. That comment that made your heart race, that silence that felt like rejection, that situation that left you irrationally angry. They're not just random reactions. They're echoes of unresolved pain, memories stored in the body, replaying the past to protect you from more hurt. But here's the paradox. Avoiding your triggers doesn't heal them. Suppressing your feelings doesn't free you. True freedom begins when you respond to a trigger with curiosity, not shame. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? When have I felt this before? What part of me is trying to protect itself? Because your trigger is not the real problem. The root is deeper. And when you follow the emotion to its source, you begin to understand yourself in a way you never have. You stop reacting blindly. You start choosing consciously. You begin to see that the world is not hurting you again and again. It's showing you where you're still hurting yourself. This is the gateway to deep transformation. Instead of fearing the next emotional eruption, you begin to welcome it, like a wise teacher returning with another clue. Each trigger becomes a compass, pointing to the mountain you're still climbing. And with each courageous look inward, you get lighter, stronger, freer. So the next time your chest tightens, or your voice shakes, or your hands tremble, don't escape. Lean in. Because on the other side of that trigger might be the part of you you've been searching for all along. Chapter 7. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you.
Have you ever tried to grow roots in poisoned soil? No matter how much sunlight you chase, how many seeds of self-love you plant, nothing flourishes if the ground itself is toxic. This is the truth that so many of us resist. You cannot heal in the same place that hurt you. Yet we stay. We stay in friendships that drain us, jobs that devalue us, homes that echo with the pain of old wounds. We convince ourselves, if I just change, everything will be okay. But what if the very air you're breathing is laced with the past? What if your progress isn't stalling because of you, but because of where you're standing? Healing requires more than inner work. It demands outer shifts. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is walk away from what's familiar, even when it still whispers your name. Because when you're constantly triggered, constantly proving, constantly shrinking, you're not healing, you're surviving. And survival is not your end goal. You were born to thrive. To do that, you need safe spaces, people who see your light, not just your shadows. A routine that restores you, not one that robs you of your wounds. A rhythm of life that doesn't just distract you from your wounds, but gives you room to truly feel them and release them. Sometimes that means leaving behind relationships you once begged to keep. Sometimes it means setting boundaries so firm they feel like loss. But freedom always comes with a cost. And nothing is more expensive than staying somewhere that silences your soul. So ask yourself, what am I clinging to that no longer serves the person I'm becoming? What's familiar but no longer fitting? And what would it take to give yourself permission to outgrow the pain? Because healing is not just a journey inward, it's a courageous step outward.
Chapter 8. Self-sabotage, the enemy within. What if the biggest obstacle in your life was you? Not your past, not your boss, not your parents or your partner, or your circumstances, but the quiet, familiar voice inside your head that whispers, "You're not ready. You're going to fail. Why even try?" This is self-sabotage, not a lack of ability, but a lack of self-trust. It's the invisible ceiling that stops you from leaping, the procrastination that masks your fear, the perfectionism that hides your unworthiness. It's staying in relationships you've outgrown, avoiding the opportunities you've earned, and blaming timing instead of truth. And here's the cruel trick. Self-sabotage doesn't come dressed like an enemy. It wears the face of logic. It pretends to protect you from pain. It says, stay small, stay safe. But what it really means is stay the same. And staying the same means postponing your potential over and over again. So how do you break the pattern? Start with noticing. When you're about to send that email but hesitate, ask why. When you're on the verge of change but back away, ask who you're afraid to disappoint. When your mind starts telling you stories of failure, challenge them. Because self-sabotage isn't just a behavior, it's a belief. A belief that you're not worthy of joy, that success will cost you love, that growth,
equals isolation. But those are lies born from old wounds, and you've outgrown them. The antidote is radical self-compassion, not beating yourself up for your patterns, but understanding why they began in the first place. Maybe you weren't sabotaging. Maybe you were protecting a version of yourself that didn't know better. Now you do. So the next time fear disguises itself as logic or perfectionism paralyzes your progress, remember, you are not your patterns. You are the awareness behind them, and awareness is the first step to liberation. Chapter 9: Becoming Your Future Self. What if you stopped living from memory and started living from imagination? Most people build their lives based on who they've been. They replay old stories, repeat old roles, recycle old pain, and then wonder why the future feels like a mirror of the past. But here's the shift. Healing isn't just letting go of what hurt you. It's stepping into who you're meant to be. It's becoming your future self now. This version of you doesn't wait for permission, doesn't seek constant validation, doesn't carry the weight of other people's expectations. Your future self chooses alignment over approval, peace over chaos, growth over comfort. But how do you become someone you haven't met yet? You start small. You ask, how does my future self speak? What does she say yes to? What boundaries does he protect? How does she dress, move, rest, love? And then you begin acting from that energy today. It's not faking it. It's rehearsing your evolution. You become her in moments, in choices, in the way you say no when it costs you comfort, in the way you show up, even when no one's watching. Each aligned choice is a vote for your future. And with enough votes, that version of you becomes real, not someday, but now. This is the power of identity-based change. You don't need more willpower. You need a new self-image, one rooted in who you're becoming, not who you were afraid to be. So stand tall in your becoming, not because you're perfect, but because you're committed to the path, to the progress, to the possibility of living a life so aligned your old self wouldn't even recognize you. And that's not loss. That's transformation. Chapter 10: The Power of Emotional Alchemy. What if your emotions weren't problems to fix, but messengers to understand? Anger, fear, jealousy, grief. We're taught to silence them, suppress them, or stay positive. But what if they're not meant to be buried? What if they're sacred signals pointing toward unmet needs, unhealed wounds, and unlived truths? This is the art of emotional alchemy, turning emotional heaviness into inner gold. Here's the truth: you can't heal what you won't feel. Every time you ignore sadness, it sinks deeper. Every time you numb pain, it grows stronger in the dark. Every time you reject anger, it finds another way to erupt. But when you allow these emotions to rise without judgment, you open the door to profound transformation. Sadness teaches you what you've lost and what still matters. Anger shows you where your boundaries have been crossed, It asks, where did I abandon myself? Fear reveals the edge of your growth. It whispers, this is where courage begins. You don't need to fix your emotions. You need to listen. Let them move through you, not define you. Sit with discomfort without rushing to escape. Breathe through the tension without needing a solution. Ask your emotions, what are you trying to teach me? Because emotions are not the enemy. Avoidance is. The goal isn't to be emotionally flawless. The goal is to be emotionally fluent. To hold space for all of you, the bright, the broken, the brave. That's emotional maturity, and that's how you turn chaos into clarity. So next time a wave hits, don't fight it. Feel it. Name it. Learn from it. This is the path to emotional mastery. And the more you honor your emotional truth, the freer you become. Chapter 11. You are the mountain. What if the obstacle wasn't in your way, but on your side? We often see our struggles as enemies: procrastination, fear, insecurity, overthinking. But what if these weren't problems to conquer, but parts of us longing to be understood? This is the core revelation of the mountain is you. You are not facing the mountain. You are the mountain. Every fear you run from, every pattern you repeat, every voice in your head that says you can't, they're not barriers, they're breadcrumbs, clues, leading you back to the part of yourself that's been exiled. The child who felt unsafe, the teen who never felt enough, the adult who learned to shrink to be loved. And here's the shift. Healing isn't becoming someone new. It's coming home to who you were before the world told you to be small. You stop climbing when you realize the summit was never out there. It was always within. You are the fear. You are the courage. You are the trigger and the truth. You are the one holding the key and the one waiting to be unlocked. That means the mountain isn't something you conquer. It's something you merge with. You rise not by pushing harder, but by softening. Not by doing more, but by being more of who you are. So pause, breathe, look in the mirror and ask, what part of me needs love today? Because the mountain doesn't need to be moved. It needs to be met. With honesty, with compassion, with the fire of someone who is no longer afraid of themselves.
And when that happens, you don't just overcome, you become. That is the true summit. The moment you realize you were never broken, you were only buried, and now you rise.